everyone, it is Erin and we are back with our ink lab with Brutus Monroe. We are testing 8 different inks: the Brutus Monroe, Tim Holtz Distress, Staz-on, a Dare to be Artsy, 2 Primas, Colorbox chalk, and the Studio G chalk. This is the one that you get at Michael's and Joann's and like the dollar bins and stuff. Today we are going to test it on 4 different surfaces and we've already tested. This is video 3. The first video that we did, and you can take a look at it here. Video lab 2, which you can check up here in the corner. All of the videos have a chance to win a prize to get a set of Brutus Monroe inks. These are the Brutus Monroe mini inks that you can see here. And there is going to be 4 winners that are each going to win a set of Brutus Monroe inks, a pack like this. There is 4 different packs, and so there's going to be 4 different winners, each getting their own pack. All you need to do, and if you've already subscribed and you've already done it on the previous videos, this is a chance number 3 to get an entry in there, is subscribe to my channel, simple as that, and then leave a comment on this video that you would like to win a prize, and let me know that you have subscribed or that you are a previous subscriber. Simple, simple. 2 things. It's also listed at the bottom. Very, very easy. So if you have already commented on video 1 and video 2, this is your 3rd entry. If this is the first time seeing these videos, then go ahead and go back to video 1 and 2 and leave the same comment that you are a subscriber and you'd love to win the prize, and you will get 3 possible entries into this prize. There is also a coupon code. Right here at the bottom, you'll see it, Erin Reed, all lowercase, for 20% off anything that says chalk ink. All right, so now we are moving on. What are we going to test today? Today we are going to test a series of what I would call non-traditional surfaces, but just to kind of get an idea of how they would stick onto different stuff. And if you did not know, you can stamp on non-traditional items. For instance, this is dried clay. So this is an air dry clay that I've rolled out on a sheet, and this is just white, and yeah, I got a little blue on it, I'm really sorry. This is just white, and it's been air drying for about an hour and a half. If I let this go overnight, it would completely air dry, but at this point, the way I kind of got it to here, you could stamp and then you could take your scissors and you could cut it out because it would not be super hard. This is by Macon's Clay. So this is an air dry clay by Macon's Clay. I'm just going to shift it. If it goes on my whiteboard, we have problems. We have a tile with a glossy surface. So this is just a regular old tile, and I have 2 of them because there's not enough to get onto one. The reason why I picked a tile is a long time ago I did do a project where we took a stamp onto a tile and it became a coaster. And so you never know, you might use a tile as your blank crafting space or surface for some sort of project, which would be really cool. So we're going to try that. We also have a foil, and this foil is a 2-sided foil, and this is like a paper, and this is from Rinea, R-I-N-E-A, Rinea foil, and we're going to see how well you can stamp on this foil paper. And then the last thing we have is wood. We're going to see how well it stamps on wood. So you may have a project where you want to do for a family or some sort of home decor project, and you want to put a stamp on it and you want to know what stamp works best. So we're going to test that as well. And for every single one, we are going to stamp using the same exact stamp, and we are going to clean the stamp using the Brutus Monroe Squeaky Clean Stamp Cleaner, and then patting it dry. Oh, and for this purpose, I'm just going to lay the clay in the middle, and then you can see what ink we are doing because it's going to be aligned in here. All right, so let's get going. I can just leave this here. So here's all of our inks, and if you notice, all the ink colors that I have picked are somewhere in the range of reds and oranges because that's the colors that I happen to have. And so I didn't want to pick something that was completely a different color. I didn't want to go with, oh, well, some are red and some are green and some are yellow. And the closest I could get was all of these red and orange colors. So I'm just cleaning my stamp off to get any residual, anything that may be left. We're going to blot it dry each time just to make sure the stamp cleaner does not transfer over from one project to another. And then I'm going to do the first one with you, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. It's pretty much the same as what I've done in the other test labs. We're going to ink up our stamp. This is the Brutus Monroe. And we're going to go ahead and stamp directly on and lift up. And then we're going to test the bottom. So it's got a little bit of smear action, but it's not too terrible. That's not too bad. And when you do stamp into clay, because clay is going to be a little bit porous, and it's a little bit soft, this hasn't fully hardened yet, you are going to want to push down, and it will kind of leave a little bit of an indent for whatever stamp that happens to be. I'm going to do the same thing to all the other ones going down the line. Ranger is next, and going all the way across, and speed this up for you. Okay, so let's test them all. So as you can see, it looks like from when you very first stamped it, everything but the Staz-on, the Dare to Be Artsy, and the Studio Chalk ink, this one did a tiny bit smeared. What we're going to do now is we're going to briefly heat set this. It is clay, so we can't overheat set it, but we just want to give it a quick little, just to kind of get a little bit of heat on there to see what it would do. So very, very lightly. Okay, so here we go. It is pretty much dried. Now we're going to go down the line again and see how they smear. So I'm just going to kind of rub my finger on it. And look, it is on there. I cannot get this to move at all. And it's pretty good. And I really didn't heat set it for that long. Maybe just about 10 seconds per little cup. Ranger is on there. Staz-on is on there. Dare to Be Artsy is on there. Studio G, it's good. The Colorbox is on there. This one's still smearing. The Prima Quick Dry is still smearing. Now, down at the bottom it's not, so maybe it just needs a little bit more of a heat because the top part looked like it was still kind of wet. So the bottom is doing pretty good. Wouldn't be my top favorite pick, but you could do it. And then we have the Resist. The bottom smeared again, but the top is staying pretty good. So it looks like every single one of these inks does a pretty good job staying on the clay. These ones are not my favorites, and definitely give them a little bit of time to dry so they kind of soak up into the clay. This is not a bone dry clay either. This is still pretty malleable. It's not to the point where I could reform it. I mean, it does feel like it's a sheet of clay, but it's not dry and stiff and hard as a board. So all in all, pretty much all of them except for these two did a really great job. All right, the next thing that we're going to test is we're going to test this paper foil. This is a special foil that has two sides to it, and they come in a range of colors. I just picked a nice silver so it'd be easy to see the colors, but there's all different colors that you can get. And it does have paper in the middle of it. So as you can see, it's got a tiny, tiny bit of paper. It's called Rinea foil, and it holds its shape, which is really cool. See? It kind of holds the shape that it's at. So it's not like the regular foil that you would get in your craft packs. This is a little bit different. So we've cleaned our stamp, we've patted it dry. We're going to take the ink and we're going to ink up our stamp. And we're going to stamp onto the section of the foil that corresponds to the type of ink. Lift up. With any type of foil or any kind of slick surface like this, make sure when you stamp, you don't wiggle your stamp around. You put down, you press, you lift up. Simple as that. Clean our stamp. We're also going to test the bottoms of the cups to see how well it works. And this one's already starting to kind of smear. Glossy surfaces are going to have a harder time getting things to stick to them. So I'm going to do the same thing going all the way across. Kind of straighten this out a little bit. To all of our, still staying with the same ones. Testing the bottom, and then we're going to heat set it just a little bit, just to see how it holds up after we heat set. Okay, so pretty much every ink right away after I stamped it except the Staz-on stuck smeared right away. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through and we're going to heat set all of these just for a few seconds. I don't want to heat up the paper and make it warp, but just to kind of get a little bit of the ink possibly stuck to the paper a little bit better. All right, so I've heat set all of them, and if you notice, it kind of puckered up a little bit, but then it pretty much went right back down to flat, and I keep wiping this one. We already know the Ranger is not sticking to the paper. That's pretty obvious, but let's check the other ones. I didn't really mean to do that. Brutus Monroe is on there. It just takes a little bit of a heat. It probably could also, if you let it sit there for long enough, and if you weren't impatient like me, if you gave it a little bit of time to dry, I bet it would stick to the foil without needing a heat gun. Staz-on. It is on there, no problem. Dare to Be Artsy. Oops, that's asked me. Yeah, not too bad. It's actually doing a pretty good job. The chalk ink is doing great. The Colorbox is on there. The Prima is smearing all over the place. And then the Prima Resist is actually holding true. So all the ones that did work, let's go with the ones that didn't work. The ones that didn't work were the Prima Quick Dry and the Distress Ranger. All the other ones did a fantastic job of making sure that they held true. And as long as you put a little bit of heat, the Staz-on worked right away. So that's pretty cool. So most inks that you might have, even the cheapy inks, put a little tiny bit of heat onto a foil and it'll work just great. All right, I've just cleaned off my stamp and we're going to try the tile now. All right, we're going to do the exact same process. Ink up your stamp. Go ahead and stamp it on. Because this is a slick surface, straight down, straight up. Kind of wiggled that one a tiny bit. It is very hard. Check. Okay, smears. I've been feeling almost all of these are going to smear on a tile because it is so slick. But then we're going to go through and I'm going to speed this up both ways. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to test it each way. Go ahead and heat set and then test it again and then we'll talk. All right, so we have heat set all of these and let's check them out. Look at that, pretty good. Smearing all over the place. There we go. I had a little red on my fingers, that's why it looks like it's smeared, but it's holding true. I didn't want to give you a different opinion. Dare to be Artsy, ooh, all over the place. Studio G, all over the place. Colorbox, nothing. Prima, nope. Prima Resist. It's not as bad, but it's still smearing. It's not wanting to stay put. And I really did heat set all of these the same. So the only true that are sticking are the Staz-on and Brutus Monroe. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you went through and you added water to this right now, it is going to bleed. I think if you let them set a little bit longer for both of these, 48 hours until it's fully hard set. But if you were going to do something over top of a tile like this, I would definitely add a coat of something to make sure it stayed put. A clear coat of something. Spray finish, something along those lines to make sure it did not move on you. Because you could go back with alcohol at this point. Let me just show you. I'm just putting a tiny bit on my finger. And see how it comes right off, and that's for both of them. So a little bit of alcohol, if it gets on there, it's going to ruin whatever project you happen to be doing at that moment. But even if you added water, let that dry. So for water for all of these, it reactivated it. But here's what's going to happen with the Brutus Monroe. It kind of resets it off. And the same with this, it just pulls it right off when you use it with the water. So keep that in mind that even with these guys with water, it's right away. We just stamped it and I set them for maybe 20 seconds with the heat gun. Over time, it probably would be fine, but definitely put a coat on there if you're going to do something. When I did the coasters, we stamped with, I believe it was Staz-on because Brutus was, this was like 6 years ago. It wasn't even out yet. And we did put a clear coat finish over top of them to make them coasters. And they were little squares like this. And they worked just fine. And I still have, they're beautiful. I still use them to this day. And I've wiped them. They've gotten condensation on them. They've done just great. So just kind of keep that in mind. Let them set for a long time. Definitely put a clear coat finish on it. All right, we're going to do the same thing again. This time we're going to do it on a piece of wood. This is just pine that has been cut and kind of sanded down. So we're going to see how all this holds up because you never know. There could be a project that you want to do wood and you want to stamp on it and you want to see how it does. Same thing as before. Do a direct stamp, lift up, test to see if it smears. Simple as that. Clean your stamp, go on to the next one. They all did fantastic. Every single one of these actually held up really well. This one smeared a tiny bit, same with this. This one, it kind of bled into the wood a little bit. It didn't really keep its crisp, clear image. Brutus Monroe's kind of seeping into the wood a little bit. Same with the some of the other ones. These two kind of kept their image as least seeped into the wood, meaning that it's more of like it's stamped on top of the wood versus going into the wood. But they're all doing great. Any ink that you have here would end up working fantastic on wood. It just depends on how much of a crisp image you really want. Again, the Colorbox kind of seeps in and bleeds out and makes it a little less crisp of an image. You're probably wondering why I'm testing everything with water. Is because a lot of the stuff that I like to do is I love to use mists, and so whenever I'm testing anything with a water on it, it's almost as if I was going to mist over it. Or it can also be, what if you ran it through the wash, or what if you got it wet somehow. That's why I always test things with water. So let's put a spray of water and see how they hold up. This one's bleeding even more now, and this one's kind of bleeding more. This one's starting to pull the ink off. That one's doing fine. And this is raw wood, keep in mind too. It's not treated at all, so it would definitely seep in a bit more. So the ones that held their image the best after sprayed would be the Staz-on, the Brutus Monroe, and the Studio G. This one's smeared. This one's starting to bleed into the bit. You can see that it's starting to kind of bleed into the wood. This one's bleeding into the wood. The Prima Resist actually did not bad of a job. It's not as dark of an image, but it might just be the color of the ink that I picked. But it's doing a pretty good job on it. So overall, that is doing great. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to sign up to win your inks from Brutus Monroe. All you need to do is leave a comment that you're a subscriber and that you'd love to win. That's it. If you're already a subscriber, tell me. Just make sure you leave the comment you are a subbie, or you just became one and that you'd like to win. That's it. Thanks so much. Don't forget to check out part 1 and part 2, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.